So while we're on the rush game here, natural for me to kind of go into some of the rushing props that I do have in the account. I have over 10.5 rush attempts for Kareem Hunt. It has now moved to 11.5 for him. I still think it's playable at 11.5. I also played the alt at 14 plus for Kareem Hunt. That's almost like a mini hedge against my position with the Eagles, because I think that, obviously if the Chiefs are winning or up in this game, then Hunt might be trying to ice the clock in the fourth quarter as it is anyway. But I'm with you. Like, I think he has some success. I mean, like it's going to be 4 down linemen. That's about it every single time here from Fangio. And like I said, like Kareem Hunt is very good at averaging 4.7 yards a carry in a game. And like, that's great. Like 4.7 yards, you would take that all day, every day of the week. And so I think Andy Reid is going to take advantage of that. And I think Kareem Hunt definitely gets some carries in this game. He has been out touching Isaiah Pacheco since Pacheco came back from injury. Pacheco hasn't looked the same since he came back from injury. So I like Kareem Hunt here at over 11.5 rushes. I took the over 43.5 rush yards as well as a bit of a correlated play here with him. And then if I like Kareem Hunt a ton, I got to dislike Pacheco, and they opened Pacheco's longest rush at 9.5 yards. He only had 3 10-yard rushes all year anyway. And so if I think he's only going to get a handful of carries in the game, I have to play the under. So under 9.5 longest rush, I should say, for Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, I mean, Hunt is the clear preferred short yardage back as well. And in the passing game, they frequently bring Samaje Perine in for, especially I've noticed, 3rd and longer. I don't anticipate Pacheco being on the field. So I don't even know how many snaps he's going to play. He's been like around 30%, I think, the last couple of games. I agree with you completely that something doesn't look right to me. I think it's maybe normal. We've seen players with this injury. Mark Andrews would be a recent example, and Tony Pollard, players with like fractures in their lower leg, have came back and just not looked themselves for a good half year.
Yeah.
And I think that could be what we're seeing. And I don't really anticipate Pacheco looking like his normal self until next season. So I think it's fairly obvious. And then you get into a big spot like this, you just can't really afford to waste those carries on a guy who's not himself. So, no shade against Pacheco. He has done some very good work for the Chiefs the last couple of years, but I don't anticipate a very big role for him in this game.
Where do we sit? So we're just talking the Chiefs side of things. I mean, obviously we know Saquon is going to get, 95% of the carries in this game. His rushing prop, a market low of 109.5, a market high of 113.5, with an attempts set at 21.5 in this one. What do you kind of see his role being and the success of him having against this Chiefs D?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised the total rushes is that low. It seemed a little bit low to me.
Me too, because I played over at 22.5. So I mean, I got the worst of the number. I was like,
we were looking at this number last week at 24.5, I think, or 23.5. So I don't know why it's down. I get that they're like slight underdogs now instead of being favorites, but I don't think the Eagles are going to change what they want to do no matter what happens. I mean, especially when you just look at the way some of these games have played out against the Chiefs. I mean, teams that go away from their bread and butter early, like the Ravens and last year's AFC champion, it just has not gone well for them.
Has not worked out for basically anybody. It's literally like almost anybody.
I think the worst thing they can do, and I think the Eagles staff knows this, is to panic and just start letting Jalen Hurts drop back. And I would, at that point, you just click on any alt KC number you can find, because I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not a Jalen Hurts guy. I never will be. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. He's fine. I don't think he's like bad, but man, if he's in must-pass situations, I think you are in big trouble, especially against Spagnuolo's blitz packages. And I think the Eagles are smart enough to know that, and they're just going to stick to their guns.
Yeah, for me, the rushing total is so high for Barkley that I'd almost just rather play alts, and it's like he goes crazy, or like busts like one massive run like we've seen the last 3 games from him or something. So like I'd almost prefer to play over 130 at plus 170 than play like an over 110.5 at minus one. The juice now is all out to minus 116 or something like that. I'd rather get 170 at 130 plus than the 111 yards, because it seems to me like it's either going to work or it's not, and they're just going to keep doing it or have to get away from it. And so I would almost rather play alts on Barkley than just that. I mean, 110 is a lot of yards, so it's either like shit's working or it's not,
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I would say I don't hate playing the alt unders either for the same reason.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
The Chiefs have an established history in playoff games of outperforming their regular season rushing defense metrics. As a Chiefs fan, I have seen this time and again over the years. Every year there seems to be at least one playoff matchup where everybody thinks, look at this stat, look at that stat, and look at that third stat. This team is going to run over the Chiefs, and it never happens. I always look at the box score at the end of the game, and the other running back superstar ran for 78 yards on 18 carries. It's happened so many times. Bills last year, Ravens last year. I mean, Derrick Henry, the Chiefs have bottled up so many of these guys when it comes down to playoff time on teams that had worse defenses than this one. So I'm honestly not that worried about Barkley. I'm more worried about A.J. Brown, truth be told. So, yes, Barkley could rip off a 70-yard run, and I have repeatedly said these are likely predictive when it comes to the Eagles, but I don't love his chances in this matchup.
So I'm glad you brought up A.J. Brown. So let's go ahead and head to the receivers and the receiving side of all of this. A.J. Brown sitting at 69.5 as a market low, 71.5 as a market high from a receiving standpoint. Do you think that him getting there or not getting there is game script dependent, or do you think that he could be just a normal part of this offense, and whether things are going good or going bad, it could still lead to one or the other?
I think to some degree it is game script dependent, but I think maybe more matchup dependent than anything. I'm curious to see how the Chiefs elect to defend these receivers. Trent McDuffie played a lot in the slot in years past. Not so much this year. They are definitely keeping him outside. That is where he will find A.J. Brown. He has struggled at times against some of these bigger, stronger receivers, though. Cortland Sutton kind of ate his lunch in that matchup, and I kind of think he might be better off shadowing Devontae Smith, but they do tend to put Smith in the slot at times, and I'm not sure how that's going to shake out. Obviously, the Chiefs getting Jalen Watson back means they have two good outside corners, but I'm assuming they're going to want to give safety help to A.J. Brown's side. He did have that flub against the Rams, but even then it's just like he's getting open. He's beating these cornerbacks. Nobody is having much success staying with him. A lot of shorter stuff, too, that he's easily beating people on these slants. Those have been Trent McDuffie's strong suit over the years, though. I think he's really strong defending really both down the field and the shorter stuff. So I'm curious to see what the Chiefs try to do. I don't have a strong feeling of what they're going to do either way, but if it ends up being Jalen Watson plus more safety help, I think that's a little worse for A.J. Brown. And if he's isolated on McDuffie, he might have a little bit more success than people think.
Yeah, it's the deal where this is the number one, like, outside of what happens with this whole Saquon thing with Spags, like, what is the A.J. Brown game plan? Because Chiefs run man at the highest rate, one of the highest rates. I think it's like eighth, eighth highest rate in the NFL or whatever it is. A.J. Brown is the best receiver versus man there is in the NFL. And so, like, they have all the stats we do, Mo, right? I mean, they have all the stuff that we do. So they know this heading in. And so it's like, what do we get out of that? Because there's going to be a wrinkle. That's what that's why he's a genius. That's why he has run some of the best defenses we've ever seen with, like you said, maybe sometimes not even the greatest talent in the world, because he schemes it so well. So I am very curious as to what the wrinkle will be for A.J. Brown, because he is a man beater. You do like to run a ton of man. So he's going to do something here, and I'm curious as to what that is.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are a team that I don't think likes to get outside of their own strengths. I think when you've had the success the Chiefs have had, it's very easy to just convince yourself, I'm going to play my game and we're going to make the other team adjust. And for the most part, it works. I don't know if it will work against A.J. Brown. Like you said, he seems pretty much unguardable in man. So I am a little bit concerned about that matchup. And another one is Dallas Goedert. He has had a lot of success against the Chiefs in the last Super Bowl. He beat the Chiefs on high leverage downs repeatedly. He plays tight end, obviously, which is a position the Chiefs have struggled to defend all season. We've talked about that a few times, I think. They're just not as strong over the middle of the field. I think you saw that against the Texans a few games ago. Basically, every completion the Texans had in that game was over the middle of the field. So we could see some success for Dallas Goedert. I think pretty much every tout I've seen is on Dallas Goedert over for this game.
Go ahead and throw me in there as well. Now I will say this. I was on air on Sunday night, first time since I've been betting seriously, and it's been 25 years at this point. I mean, the props were up at the major sports, at the big sports books within minutes of the game being over. I mean, and so they opened Goddard down at 46.5 yards. I'm like, that seems too low. Bet the over there. Now we're sitting, low. I mean, we're sitting in the 50s now with Goddard. I still think he can have a very good game. I just want everyone to know when I say, I really love Goddard in this game, the number has shifted a decent amount. What hasn't shifted is the receptions, though, at 4.5. Mo, I know it seems so easy to keep saying, but really and truly, we do keep seeing tight ends have decent days against the Chiefs, repeatedly. We do keep seeing it. They were dead last in the NFL in yards per route run allowed to the tight end position this year, and so we see Goddard come off a monster game, last game for this Eagles squad. I don't think Jalen Hurts is very good either. These are literally high percentage throws that he's throwing to Goddard. These are high completion percentage passes he's throwing to Goddard. I fell in the trap too, buddy. I'm on the Goddard overs, and I guess they can prove me wrong.
A lot of that I think is by design. When you look at, it's like the Chiefs have always, until this year, I think, allowed a lot of receptions to running backs and receiving yards to running backs. Well, the average catch by running backs and tight ends is not as valuable as the average catch by a wide receiver. This is very obvious. So the Chiefs would probably prefer to funnel the targets and the catches to Dallas Goedert and away from Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And I see no reason to not laud them for that because that's probably what they should do.
What about the other side of the ball? What about Kelsey?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say real quick is if these numbers have gotten a little bit out of control for you and you want a different angle on it, DraftKings has Dallas Goedert head-to-head against Travis Kelce plus 130. I think that's okay. Unfortunately, I was looking at that a few days ago, and it was plus 145, I think. So somebody has hammered that, which unfortunately I did not get on that early enough. So I touted that to somebody before I bet it, which was a large mistake on my part. But there is still plus 130. I think that's still maybe okay. It's definitely not as exciting as it was when it was up closer to plus 150. But yeah, I'm a little bit bearish on Kelsey. I just think with the way the numbers have adjusted up heavily on Kelsey is maybe getting a bit too much. I know that they're just baking in playoff Chiefs and playoff Kelsey, and I completely am a believer in playoff Chiefs. I don't know if I'm a believer in playoff Kelsey at this point. Last year, when we saw Travis Kelce come back, you saw a different looking player when he came out against the Bills and is just toasting people one-on-one, scoring touchdowns. Okay, that's not what he's been doing in this year's playoffs. He had a big game against Houston in which he broke maybe the first two tackles I've seen him break all year, and that was a product of poor Houston tackling. I don't think Kelsey looks any faster or quicker than he did during the regular season, not the way he looked in last year's playoffs. So I think maybe these numbers are pumped up a tad too high. I am into the idea of some 12 personnel here for the Chiefs. I was looking up some numbers. I'm assuming the Chiefs staff knows this. Philly's defense has been quite a bit worse defending 12 personnel compared to 11. When you look at them versus 11 personnel, they're minus 0.11 EPA per play allowed. Verse 12, it's minus 0.03, which is obviously still good. But when you're looking at the best defense in the NFL, basically being scratch in that subset of plays is actually like not that good. So that is a way for the Chiefs, I think, to maybe have some success. And we know who the Chiefs' TE2 is. It is Noah Gray. I think we can get some really buy low numbers on Noah Gray, man. The last couple games, I should say, 3 targets total. They were all against Houston. He didn't get a single one against Buffalo, I believe. So his numbers are quite depressed. We're looking at 11.5, 12.5 across the market. The thing is, he's still playing close to 50% of the snaps. So I think the opportunities will be there. We've talked about what sort of throws Fangio wants to force. Well, throws to Noah Gray would probably be at the top of the list. They will be short throws. They will be over the middle. I mean, only the Chiefs running backs basically finished with a lower ADOT than Noah Gray out of players that had more than 30 targets. He was a big part of the offense in the regular season. I mean, he scored more touchdowns than Travis Kelce, so it's not like this would be totally crazy for Noah Gray to have a decent game. And then you're looking at a total of 11.5. I think you can try some alts if you want. Another option, which I think I'll have a taste of, there's as high as plus 550 to score a touchdown out there. I think I'm going to have a little bit of that.